Hey, this is Gary and welcome back to my channel for making a 2D framework using LibGdx. And so we've covered creating the animations to render our images to the screen, and we covered the motion class, which determines which animation to play depending on the direction, and we introduced the movement class in the last two videos, which is the movement of the character. And combining those all together, we get our sprite moving across the screen like so. In this video, we're going to put all those elements together into a sprite class. This is our sprite class, and it's an abstract class. He implements updatable, which is the abstract update method, and also implements sprite update, where you can get the x and y coordinates, and you can set the location or set the x and y separately. The sprite class contains the base elements for all of our sprites. So he has the location, x and y, as a float, and the height and width is an integer, and all images are whole numbers, they're not fractional. And so one thing that we updated in our framework is that we changed getting the width and height as an integer instead of a float. And then the setting of the size is also an integer. And so now int and height in our base animation is an integer, and the set method is updated accordingly, and along with the height and width methods. All right, for our tutorial, we're going to make a new sprite screen, which will extend our base screen. And there's our abstract methods. So we'll start by implementing what we've done so far. So we're going to start out with a x and y location and our motion. And then we'll create the new sprite update like we did in our previous example. There we've got setting all the x and y locations, getting the x and y locations. And we also need to create our movement. And we'll just use the mouse movement. We need our sprite update. We'll just call it sprite. Then down in the render child is where we'll update our movement with the sprite. Motion.update, get direction, and then we'll draw it. And there's our sprite moving in the four directions as before. So this is currently what we have for creating our sprite. Now let's add some additional sprites. We're going to add an animation, soda animation. I'll show you what that is in just a moment. Then we're going to add a tree animation. So our soda animation, we'll just create a new static animation for that. And our tree animation, also a static animation. And then tree to animation is going to be a loop animation. We just want the first row of that. So these are our animations in question. So this is our soda animation. It's just a soda machine. This is the tree. The leaves will be replaced by this tree top, which is just an animation sequence of the leaves blowing in the wind. So right now we have our motion being drawn. So if I add the soda animation and draw it, I'm not going to call the update because it doesn't, there's nothing to update on this. And we'll just stick him at 50 to 200. We'll do our tree animation. Draw him. We'll put him at 200, 105. And then we'll do our tree 2 animation. We'll need to do an update for him because he's a loop animation, and then we'll draw him. And this is the top, and we're going to put him at the same place. And move the update method up here. So I'll render that. So now you can see that the leaves are at the bottom of the tree, and so we have to adjust that. So let's go in here and move him up to 159. Okay, here we have it all rendered. That's the soda machine, that's the tree, and that's the leaves blowing in the wind, and here's our character. Now you notice that the character is just the loop animation, so he's just constantly walking even though she's standing still. And you also notice that the character is always behind the tree because I have it rendering last. And the soda machine renders after the character as well, so he's always behind the tree as well. Now the female character, she moves about the screen, while the soda machine and the tree, they just stand still. So the functionality that we need for the character moving is different for what we need for these sprites that are not moving. And so from our base sprite, we're going to create what I'm calling a decor, which is basically short for decoration, where it's just the animations, the sprites that do not move. And so it has everything for an it has everything for a sprite that's not going to move about on our screen. It's just going to be sitting in a single location. And so he's just going to have a single animation. We could potentially change this to be an array of animations, but we'll start with just a single animation at this time. We can always enhance our classes as we build out the framework. And so the sprite animation has a draw method, just like all of our other classes. Also has an update method, and there is a method for setting the animation, and we make sure that that animation argument is not null. So there's that null check. The other sprite class is our actor. This is for the sprites that move about the screen. And so he has a movement class. He has a move motion class. Now this one I've set up as an array. So potentially if you want your characters to be able to kind of walk slow and walk fast, you can have two different motions and animations for those by passing those in. And then we have an index for whatever the current move motion is. And then there is a still motion. And the still motion is for when that sprite is standing still and not moving. And again, this is also an array, so you can have multiple still motions depending on maybe like how long the character's been standing there. If they stand too long, then the character starts like fidgeting or something like that. And then we have an index for that. So it has two constructors. One constructor is for if you have a single motion and a single still motion, you can just pass it directly into this method. The height and width of the actor is based off of the still motion's height and width. And it sets all the attributes. The other class takes an array of move motions and array of still motions. And so, like again, it uses the first element of the still motions to get the height and the width. And then it does a draw method, and it makes a call to get speed. And if that speed is 0, then it calls the still motion to draw it. Otherwise, it'll call the move motion and draw that. And then we have a get speed method, and what that does is it calls the movements get current speed. That's a new method. I'll go into that in just a moment. And the update will update the movement first, check its speed to see if it's moving, and then it will call the still motions update method or the move motions update method and pass in that direction. So now this movement, I added the get current speed. So I'm going to cover that now. So the get current speed is here in our base movement, and basically it's checking the X update and the Y update to see if there's 0. If there's 0, then it just returns 0. Otherwise, it returns whatever the speed of that movement is. And one other adjustment I had to make in the mouse movement. So in the mouse movement, it checks to see if the mouse button has been clicked, and it establishes a goal. And so it checks to see if it's reached that goal. And so I had to add an else condition. If it has reached its goal, then the X and Y update becomes 0. And that allows it to quickly determine what its speed is, because otherwise it only sets the X and Y update if that button has been clicked. So now we'll go back into our sprite screen and we'll do the implementation into our tutorial. Comment all those out to start with. We're going to create a new actor. We're going to use our game frameworks actor. The actor within the LibGdx Scene 2D has a lot of extra functionality in it, which kind of adds a little more to the actor class than what I would like. And it also doesn't allow us to kind of have a non-moving sprite. And that's one of the reasons why I just went with creating my own. And then we had our soda machine, so we're going to create a decor for that. And then we have a tree, so I'll create a decor for that. Keep our background as white. So we'll comment all that out. We'll create our actor now, but first what we're going to do is get our texture. And we'll just do our demo character. So I'm doing the texture separately so that I can demonstrate the functionality for different types of movement and how that works within the actor class. And also create the motion outside of the constructor as well, because we're going to use different type of actors. So we'll just use our four-way motion just like we did before. And we're going to create a motion for our still motion. All right. We'll create a new four-way motion for that. And we're going to use this first one. Now, what I want to do for the standing still, I'm going to take my character and I want this column right here. This one for standing south, this one going west, and so forth. And that's the standing position instead of this one where she's actually in a step, or this one where she's a step. Or I could use this last one here, but I'll just pull off this first one. Now I'm pulling a static image from a texture region. Now the texture region and the texture are not really compatible objects. They don't extend. One doesn't extend from the other one. So we're going to have to make a new static region animation. A static region animation will take a texture region and then just use the draw method that takes the texture region and does that functionality. So this will do the rotations and everything like that. So I have a new static region animation, and I'll need to get the texture region. So let me just do that. Do a texture region, do a texture region, and we'll split it. We'll get our texture. That is 64 by 64. And now we're back to our static region animation. So we're going to take our texture region. This one's for going north. And so we want that third row, and we want the first cell. This one's for east. So it's a static region animation. We get our texture region, and for going east we actually want the second cell and that first column. And then for south, get our texture region, and on this one we want the top row and again that first column. And then for the last one, this is moving west. This one we want that first row and number 1 in the column. And that's our still motion. Now we're ready to create our actor. So we're going to do the movement. We're going to use the first constructor, which takes a single move motion and a single still motion. And we're going to create a 2-key movement. We have our keys. Set that one to D. And we'll set this one to A. We'll give it a speed of 3. And we'll do horizontal, that's fine. Our move motion is that first motion. And our still motion is the still motion one. So now we have our actor. So our actor, we'll do our color update method. And then we do our draw method. Just pass it the sprite batch, and he's ready to go. And now we'll create the decorations. So we'll do our soda machine. There's a new decor. It's going to be a new static animation. It's our soda machine. Close that out. And then we'll do our tree. Now for the tree, we'll need to have a layered animation. And so the base of that layered animation is that tree trunk. So create a static animation for that. And then our animation will add the loop animation. So we have that added to the layer animation, and then we'll go to create our new sprite decoration and just add that layered animation to it. Down here, we'll put all of our updates together. And we'll draw our soda. Draw our tree. One last thing we need to do is set the location of the actor and our sprites. So we'll put him at 100, 100. Our soda, we'll set his location 50 to 200. Then we'll set our tree's location. And then we'll run that. Now you can see we're here again. We have our tree top is at the bottom. And so what I have done, updated the framework. So now in the base animation class, I created an offset for X and Y. We have the setting the X and Y offset. And then I've updated the other animations to also include that offset. So with that offset, we'll go back here to where our tree is. And so I'm going to pull out the tree top from here. And tree top, I'm going to set the Y offset. I'm going to set that to 54. So now I've got my tree all created correctly. And then when I run that, we have the trees now at the top. And so we have 2-key movement. And so here's the sprite moving to the right and to the left. And again, the tree is rendered last, so it's showing up on top of our character. Now you can see now that the actor, when he's standing still, she is in that standing position. So we come back here in our sprite screen, and I'll create the actor. I'm going to do a new 4-key movement. So I set the inputs, and I'll set the speed. I'll make them a little bit faster so she moves a little bit faster. We have our motion, and then we want our motion still. So now the character is created with the 4-key movement, and she's also standing still when there's no movement. Now I'm going to make the character with a mouse movement. Just update the movement that's passed into the actor. Alright, and there's our actor. And move to the right, and she stops, stands still, moves to the left, stops, stands still, down, south, and stops, and then north again, stopping. And so now that works for all of our movements. And so if you update and create your own movement classes, just be sure to reset that X and Y updates, and then the still animation will work for you. So now these attributes are protected, so you can extend these classes and then get access to these attributes, and you can make any type of updates you need for that. That's going to do it for this video, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and feel free to subscribe, as more videos will be coming as we update our 2D framework built on top of LibGdx. Till next time,